What if you're listening to the wrong voice?
The Savior used this ageless example in the allegory of the Good Shepherd. The sheep hear his voice, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, for they know not the voice of strangers. From the chorus of voices we hear in mortality, we must recognize the voice of the Good Shepherd, who calls us to follow him toward our heavenly home. As Paul said to the Corinthians, there are so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification. Some voices speak of the things of the world, providing the useful information we need to make our way in mortality. In the 5 years since I was called as a general authority, I have seen many instances where church leaders and members have been troubled by things said by these alternate voices. I am convinced that some are confused about the church's relationship to the alternate voices. As a result, members can be misled in their personal choices, and the work of the Lord can suffer. Some alternate voices are those of well-motivated men and women who are merely trying to serve their brothers and sisters and further the cause of Zion. Their efforts fit within the Lord's teaching that his servants should not have to be commanded in all things, but should be anxiously engaged in a good cause and do many things of their own free will and bring to pass much righteousness. Other alternate voices are pursuing selfish personal interests, such as property, pride, prominence, or power. Other voices are the bleatings of lost souls who cannot hear the voice of the shepherd and trot about trying to find their way without his guidance. Some of these voices call out guidance for others, the lost leading the lost. Some alternate voices are of those whose avowed or secret object is to deceive and devour the flock. The Good Shepherd warned, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." In both the Bible and the Book of Mormon, the Savior charged his shepherds to watch over and protect the flock from such wolves. There have always been alternate voices whose purpose or effect is to deceive. It is part of the plan. The prophet Lehi taught that there must needs be an opposition in all things. And there have always been other alternate voices whose purpose or effect is unselfish and wholesome. In most instances, alternate voices are heard in the same kinds of communications the church uses to perform its mission. The church has magazines and other official publications, a newspaper supplement, letters from church leaders, general conferences, and regular meetings and conferences in local units. Similarly, alternate voices are heard in magazines, journals, and newspapers, and at lectures, symposia, and conferences. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not attempt to isolate its members from alternate voices. Its approach, as counseled by the prophet Joseph Smith, is to teach correct principles and then leave its members to govern themselves by personal choices. Of course, the church does have a responsibility to point out what is the voice of the church and what is not. This is especially necessary when some alternate voice, deliberately or inadvertently, communicates a message in a way that implies church sponsorship or acquiescence. For the same reason, the church does approve or disapprove those publications that are to be published or used in the official activities of the church, general or local. For example, we have procedures to ensure approved content for materials published in the name of the church or used for instruction in its classes. These procedures can be somewhat slow and cumbersome, but they have an important benefit. They provide a spiritual quality control that allows members to rely on the truth of what is said. Members who listen to the voice of the church need not be on their guard against being misled. They have no such assurance for what they hear from alternate voices. Local church leaders also have a responsibility to review the content of what is taught in classes or presented in worship services, as well as the spiritual qualifications of those they use as teachers or speakers. Leaders must do all they can to avoid express or implied church endorsement for teachings that are not orthodox or teachers who will use their position or prominence to promote something other than gospel truth. Church leaders are sometimes invited to state the church's position at a debate or symposium about some doctrine, ordinance, or practice of the church. This kind of presentation gives an audience the benefit of whatever illumination results from the adversarial clash of opposing viewpoints. Representatives of a business organization, a political party, or a social action group might welcome such an invitation, but the church is directed to avoid disputation and contention. Moreover, if a representative of the church participated in such an event, this could have the unwanted effect of encouraging church members to look to the sponsors of alternate voices to bring them information on the positions of the church. Members of the church are free to participate or listen to any alternate voices they choose, but church leaders should avoid official involvement directly or indirectly. There are disadvantages to official non-participation in events where church doctrines, ordinances, or practices are discussed. In some instances, the overall presentation will be decidedly inaccurate or unfair because the position of the church and the knowledge of its leaders are not presented. In other instances, a volunteer will step forward to present what he or she considers to be the church's position. These volunteers are sometimes well-informed and capable, and they contribute to a balanced presentation. Sometimes they are not, and their contribution makes matters worse. When attacked by error, truth is better served by silence than by a bad argument. In any case, volunteers do not speak for the church. As long as church leaders feel they should not participate in an event where the church or its doctrines are discussed, the overall presentation will be incomplete and unbalanced. In such circumstances, no one should think that the church's silence constitutes an admission of facts asserted in that setting. Individual members of the church may also confront difficult questions when they are invited to participate. The question is more complicated when the invitation does not relate to a publication or a lecture on a single subject, but to a group of articles, a series of publications, or a conference or symposium with a large number of subjects. One article or one issue of a publication or one session of a conference may be edifying and uplifting, something a faithful Latter-day Saint would wish to support or enjoy. But another article or another session may be destructive, something a faithful Latter-day Saint would not wish to support or promote.
Many voices compete for our attention, but only Jesus Christ and His authorized servants lead us safely to truth. Choose His voice, and He will lead you home.